Good evening, all. I'm Arjun Philip. I'm one of the senior editors of the Quest Social Legal Review. I would like to welcome all the panelists and all the participants to this workshop on manual scavenging organized by the Quest Social Legal Review in collaboration with the Center for Law and Policy Research and Dalit Camera. Our media partners are SCC Online and Eastern Book Company India. Before we start, I would like to introduce our panelists. We have here with us Mr. Nishant Sirohi. He will be making the opening remarks of this workshop. Mr. Nishant is a law and society fellow at Tandem Research. He is an advocate by training. His research focus is the relationship between constitutional law, human rights, and development. He holds a degree in law from Aligarh Muslim University and a postgraduate diploma in international law and diplomacy from Indian Society of International Law, New Delhi. Previously, he was a legal researcher at the Chamber of Senior Advocate Indra Jaising. Moving on to our panelists, we have here with us Mr. Bezwada Wilson, sir. He is an Indian activist and one of the founders and national convener of the Safai Karamchari Andolan, an Indian human rights organization that has been campaigning for the eradication of manual scavenging, the construction, operation, and employment of manual scavengers, which has been illegal in India since 1993. His work at Safai Karmachari Andolan, a community-driven movement, has been recognized by Ashoka Foundation, which has nominated him as a senior fellow. On 27 July 2016, he was honored with Ramon Magsaysay Award. Dr. Raees Muhammed is a founder of Dalit Camera, a platform which is working towards portraying the society with the untouchable lens. He is a former researcher at Indian Social Institute and a fellow at Indian Institute of Advanced Studies. He was also postdoctoral fellow at University of Western Cape. Also welcoming Ms. Bhasha Singh. She's a journalist, activist, and writer. She grew up in Lucknow and received her MA and LLB degrees from Lucknow University. Journalism, she was working in Delhi from the year 1996. She has written extensively on issues of manual scavenging and farmer suicide in North India. She also writes stories and poems in Hindi, a few of which have been published. At present, she is an assistant editor at the Outlook. Ms. Pragya Akhilesh is a senior researcher, minority community rights at Dalit Adivasi Shakti Adhigar Manch. She is also a member of Homeless Network City Makers at Indo Global Social Service Society, a consultant at Association for Rural and Urban Needy. Ms. Pragya is also theatre director of Rehabilitation Research Initiative and Safai Karmachari Andolan and Lock Theatre. She is also the founder of Lock Library. Mr. Kanthi Swaroop, he is a PhD candidate at Center for Policy Studies, IIT Bombay. The topic of his thesis is study of waste, environment, caste, and infrastructure, with special reference to the sewage and sewage workers of Hyderabad. Our concluding remarks will be made by Ms. Jayna Kothari, founder of Center for Law and Policy Research. She is a senior advocate and she practices in the Supreme Court of India. She graduated from University Law College with a BA-LLB degree and uh, read the BCL at Oxford University. Jayna was awarded the Wrangler DC Pavitt Fellowship in Cambridge University. So without wasting any time, let's start. Moving on to Mr. Nishant Sirohi.
Thank you so much, Radhia. As the advisory board member of the Quest Social Legal Review, I welcome all of you for this discussion. Thank you so much for making the time. We are here to discuss the age-old yet contemporary issue of manual scavenging. Am I audible? Hello.
You are.
Yeah. So, as the advisory board member of the Quest Social Legal Review, I have been tasked to start the discussion, but with Mr. Wilson, Ms. Bhasha, and Jayna Kothari, I think I'm the least here to say something. But just for our viewers, I'm trying to recap the issue in just like few minutes. And so, manual scavenging is a dehumanizing practice which rests on and is a product of the caste system. Though Article 17 of the Constitution abolished untouchability and it's practiced in any form is forbidden, despite the linkages of untouchability with manual scavenging, it took 4 decades for the Parliament to enact the Manual Scavengers Act of 1993, and another 2 decades to bring a more comprehensive law to prohibit the same practice and to rehabilitate the manual scavengers. Whereas the new draft bill of 2020, which emphasized on complete mechanization of sewer cleaning, which was also supposed to be tabled in the monsoon session, remained hidden from any kind of public discussion and also from the Parliament in the last session. Regardless the enactments and judicial intervention, manual scavengers in India have not got their rights enforced, and the reason is that the law only focus on providing measures for protecting the protection of manual scavengers in terms of safety gears and ignore their human and civil rights. The manual scavenging cases and the laws that followed are significant for what they can achieve. However, their failure point out to the importance of creating a roadmap to prohibit a prohibit act. The panelists and speakers for the session are at the forefront of legal and social battle against manual scavenging. And with this, I would request Mr. Bezwada Wilson to take the digital platform and guide us on this very, very sensitive issue. Thank you. Sorry.
Country. Thank you. And it is good that we are all discussing one of the important issue of the country, and which is a well given. Actually, I want to make one point here. Manual scavenging is the issue which the media has given a well attention. We can't say that media has not given attention. Other Dalit issues, the media always gives a very less. But manual scavenging, somehow they have given 1 or 2 like this. But the problem here is, most important is, they give the manual scavenging like a very pathetic issue. And they project this as one of the issues where somebody has to come and support, help, and rescue life. But they will not project. There are the what we can say. There are the women who actually fought against the issue much more better than all of us. And they won. And they left. They burned their baskets. They destroyed the toilets. All these things they are not bringing to the highlight. I think that this forum like this, we have to talk about the resilience and the capacity of the women who fought against this, number 1. Number 2, the law is not working and other things are not working, and it is all fact. Why it is not working is because of the caste system and our mindset. That also we have to discuss. Technology and a new bill and all, it is all the government. Every government want to take some credit, but without doing the much work. So any government will bring the new bill, new act, all those things. It is just wasting the time. And we can always suggest the government and the standing committees and the any committees to make the whatever the new things which we are all expecting. So that is also not happening very proper way. So advocacy, that is also they asked me to speak about. But advocacy is in a kind of in a thing which is just like a meeting five parliamentarians and having the discussion can't be an advocacy. It is actually bringing the voice of the people to the appropriate level by them. So that is what exactly is happening many places. And women are already putting their efforts to make their voice more hearable by everybody. And in these circumstances, I also want to say that toilet cleaning is the one of the inhuman thing. So we everybody must actually have the a kind of a focus on that. How do we come out of that? And how we actually can also support the women who are fighting against that. And there is no rehabilitation government is providing those things. So if you think that the advocacy mechanism is a just a talking to the no, it is also with the struggle. So struggle, how with the struggle we can do the advocacy, that new things also we can discuss and we can also come to them. Of course, the technological advancement is also one of the solutions. I never said that it is only the solution, but I want to make it very clear. Asking one human being entering into the manhole or somewhere or here, and when they die and giving the 10 lakhs instead of that, there must be some kind of a mechanized way of the cleaning. For that, we everybody must put some effort and do something. And of course, there is a mindset, Indian whole psyche. This we have to break very clearly. And I, because the panel which I have seen here, they are all going to talk about the issue very clear. So I'm not prolonging my discussion. If at all there are any questions further, I am there, I am here only till the almost like another 10-15 minutes I will be here. Thank you.
Now, I would like to invite Mr. Kanthi Swaroop to speak on the topic deconstructing manual scavenging, social and historical perspective. I'm also requesting Mr. Kanthi Swaroop to be the moderator from here on. Thank you.
Thank you, Arjun. Good evening, everyone. I'm kind of fortunate to be in this panel. I keep learning from everyone as part of this panel, from Bezwada, Wilson sir to Bhasha ji, Raees Muhammed brother. And nice to meet Pragya. And I've recently read Pragya's take on the new bill. It's inspiring to be part of this panel, and it's my honor. Thank you, Quest, for doing such a powerful event here, and you've been always doing fantastic events, and I hope you will continue doing these interventions more. So, given my topic, deconstructing it from the socio-historical context, so my interest lies here to situate this in the contemporary right now, first of all, and then going back into the historical issue of the manual scavenger, because they asked me to speak about manual scavenging, so my interest would be more on scavenger, so a individual than a practice scavenging, because an individual is conscripted to do this practice. So let me first highlight the fact that the relation between the sanitation, the scientific knowledge about why the sanitation is seen as something stigmatized, or sanitation has to be keep it aside from the human civilizations. This is intrinsically, so attached to the public health problems. So given our present COVID pandemic, and we also seen the role of sanitation workers. And in fact, I mean, so it is sometimes it is strange also to see the people donating protective gear and mask to the sanitation worker and calling it as an event. So something which is, I mean, ideal sanitation worker in general sense, globally, if you see, the sanitation worker is having protective gear, so depending on the type of the environments that the sanitation worker enters. But here in India, so during the COVID, the donation of giving protective gear to the sanitation worker has become an event, something which is seen as unnatural, and earlier it was not. And this is something which is important for us to situate this very particular question and why this has become so, because sanitation is something which is always a platform where the convergence of different ideologies, be it Brahminical influenced, be it Brahminical ideology or Gandhian populism, or even the liberal take on understanding of the sanitation. So making sanitation more increasingly a unique social form determined by the caste. So this is not something which is because that had happened right now, and this has been in practice from the several centuries. So the recent amendment of the recent amendment of manual scavenging is in the parliament lobbies. So it is a timely intervention for us all to actually engage with this topic in more comprehensive way than what is actually Bezwada sir rightly mentioned about. In terms of more comprehensive way than what is stereotypically presented in the many other platforms. So let me go back, let us to connect it with the historical relation. So I would like to focus more on the early 19th century, late 19th century and early 20th century global trends about the sanitation in most the present developed global north, where starting from Paris, Berlin, London, and New York. So these are the places have actually seen a tremendous revolution in terms of sanitation, and everything is connected here to the recurrence of epidemics like plague and cholera, where the new sanitation infrastructure has been deployed, and at the same time, so the deployment of new sanitation infrastructure inducing new sanitation culture and new sanitation practices. So which are even now, even they are actually, those practices are not egalitarian practices as such, but so those practices to some extent address the question of labor question in terms of dignity, in terms of uniform to the sanitation workers, protective gear, and be less stigmatized and seen sanitation as something which is part of a human civilization, and it is not something not to be repulsive to it. So at the same time, when the colonials were in India, so despite they having a different kind of a sanitation infrastructure in London, so they pretend as if disingenuously, so they don't know how to deploy the sanitation infrastructure in India. And according to this recent book, one of the recent books, Waste of a Nations, where though both authors, Doran and Jeffrey, argue that so this disproportionately inequality in the sanitation infrastructure by the colonials is because of the state practicing, the country is in the full swing practicing the Gandhian ideology that the soul is in the villages, so we will get back to the villages, the cities are temporary to us. So that prompted them to fix the sanitation infrastructure largely to the areas where the Europeans and British lived, in the cantonment areas. So and at the same time, the Indian elites also thought that having a toilet in their houses is seen as unholy, and it is filthy in terms of having it something close to our home, and it is better we have a toilet in like this, or the existing infrastructure that has been in place. So to service it, first of all, so the adding the vocabulary into the caste literature, manual scavenging has been added into the caste literature. Earlier, it was more chandalas doing the filthy work, and it was not seen something unnatural, because every caste has a different, a particular occupation. So, like washer folks doing their duty, and cobblers doing their duty, in the historically speaking, most of the filthy work and the waste work in the villages has been expected that the Dalits are some of the caste in the Dalit, not some of them, large number of Dalit castes are expected to do it, and now it got translated to very few castes in Dalits are doing the sanitation work than other castes interested in doing it. So here, the first, the issue of migration surfaced to bring bring this duty, to do this duty in the cities. So who has to be asked to deploy? So here the intermediate caste, for example, in Bombay. So in one of the books, in archival books, Sanitation India. So it reports that this Maratha castes in Maharashtra, particularly, played a crucial role in bringing sanitation, the Dalits from the Konkan region to the Bombay to do this sanitation work. And we don't. I mean, see here the sanitation in India has a very particular eligibility by this example that okay, so it is the duty of the Dalits because they're engaging with the filthy work and they have to do it. And this is given by directly because of the Dharma Shastras and because of the religious literature that is already in place. And second, if you also consider in Hyderabad Nizams, the Mehtars from the erstwhile Punjab used to were migrated to do this work. And the same is the case with most of the South Indian coastal Telugu-speaking people were migrated to the Bangladesh. Even now in Dhaka, so many Telugu people, you see, according to Azad Usman, the Paraya people, are doing the sanitation work. So, so here it is very much evident. So that the sanitation work, the Dalits are conscripted to do this sanitation work, even in the post-independent state making, as Wilson sir earlier rightly pointed out, the policy reforms that has actually come up did not engage with the question of prohibition, abolition, elimination, or eradication, but it tried different ways how to enhance it better and how to modernize it, how to sophisticate it in terms of imagining the same worker doing the same work, but not trying to address this problem from the all aspects. In fact, the problem by the time, so when the post-independent state making, the new policies that have come up had a large influence of Gandhian ideal sanitation worker and how it has to be. And by rejecting the protests of sanitation workers, that they are worth for doing this work, and servicing the sanitation is more like a spiritual experience. So they are determined to do this work and they have to do this work. So because of that, so there was not much. I mean, there is a resistance, and that resistance is completely marginalized. And those protests are all completely marginalized. Not even a special place in the literature, and because of that, even academicians did not have much information until some of great interventions like Raees Muhammed, Aka Ravichandran Batran did a brilliant take in the EPW about the complexities by explaining nitty-gritties in the complexities of the sanitation worker and how the interface of caste, class, and nexus, this will actually are dominating more than what we are understanding only in terms of the caste. But also, we also have to understand the privatization, liberalization reforms, how actually it manifested the question of sanitation work even more reifying than it used to be earlier, in terms of development organizations coming into the India in terms of fixing this problem, but bringing their own understanding of understanding this work from their own country perspective, that okay, sanitation work is this, it is just a stigma, but it's nothing more than that. But here, not completely undermining the complexities of how it translated into a different sort of a social problem. So all these efforts at the same time, Safai Karamchari Andolan with the help of sanitation workers, and you see many in the autobiography in the unseen brilliant work by Bhasha Singh where she has documented how so eating is becoming difficult. Some dishes they can't eat, for example, dal or any other dish and that resembles the shit. So how a food has been distanced by doing this work, and how caste actually reproduced stigma in terms of food habits. So and at the same time, so the new take by Joel is Order and Order, how caste is inscribed in the sensorium, actually detailed the effects of the reproduction of smell, and so the sensorium of the work atmosphere, and at the same time their living atmosphere is not so different, and how they actually are creating this problem even more complex. So having said this, so the present formulation of manual scavenger, even in most of the excellent takes by this work and detailing, the vernacular texts are doing great earlier in terms of jute and autobiographical narrative by Om Prakash Valmiki, where he talks about despite he migrating from village to city in search of education, but caste. Despite working in ordnance factory, his caste has haunted. Somehow he managed to get out of the stigma that attached to his position, but the caste and other issues that mediated and haunted him till continue to mediate. And at the same time, it is also important to see Narayanam in Andhra Pradesh actively involved in demolishing the dry latrines and also actively part of advocating for the rights of sanitation workers. Here, the sanitation worker and manual scavenger, sometimes people think that, okay, so these are different entities, but at the same time, here I remind you that in the sanitation work atmosphere, the sanitation worker in India does not have any protective gear by definition. So human excreta, anybody who interacts with human excreta will becomes the manual scavenger. That means every sanitation worker in India is a manual scavenger. So it is important to highlight this particular issue. So the kind of vulnerability so the present Indian state of sanitation affairs is having. And quickly coming to the coverage of the media, and media is doing great job. I completely agree to this fact, but at the same time, so they are selectively they're selectively doing it when only in terms of only when there is manual scavenger death surfaces. So here when manual scavengers death surfaces, what is happening is, so people are intended to understand that, okay, so this is manual scavenging is something associated to the death, but not the practice. So the practice is as important as the death, and at the same time, so when manual scavenging is when there is no death, so how people are expected to think about manual scavenging? Yesterday, if there is no death, that means there is no manual scavenging. So why this selective treatment of reporting? I think be also important, and at the same time, it is also for us to talk about the lack of collective action among the Dalits. So where the preference is not given to the sanitation working communities, even now in the mainstream Dalit politics, so their question is not taken into seriously. And even Dalits, for example, even Malas being practicing untouchability with Release and Madiga communities of Andhra and vice versa, even in the Telangana. So this is also hampering the collective action to take forward this question of manual scavenging very effectively into the into the public debates. So since this law is now going for the amendment, so not much is going to happen, because looking at the document, as Wilson sir actually mentioned, every government wants to claim, but the Congress government who was there till 2014 actually did not do. Many people say that BJP is worsening it, but no, it's every government is doing the same thing. It's not about BJP or Congress. It's about everything. It's about everything. So I think here it is important for us to prioritize how we are moving forward to this. Because sanitation workers, many of them associated with the Safai Karamchari Andolan, assert that no one has to do it. Na Bangi, na Brahmin, no one has to do this work, and it has to be something. And we need to envisage new ways of understanding the sanitation. That means so purely understanding the sanitation, not in terms of so technology and modernization are one questions. I think we need to detail about the infrastructural point of view. What is this the question of technology and the infrastructure? But at the same time, I think it is also important to understand so the parallel ways of reaching for this problem, both in terms of annihilation of caste and improvisation towards the technology. Not reinscribing the caste, so more egalitarian as possible. So with this, I try to conclude my session and then hand it over to the next person. Bhasha ji can come up and reflect on what she wants to present today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Jai Hind. And I think the issue is very clear here, and all who are discussing have a direct connect with the issue. So it's good to have very in-depth discussion on this topic. which again came to limelight with this session, bringing out with a new amendment in the 2013 Act. First, what I find that we have to see this issue of manual scavenging in a political perspective, because there is a politics behind it. That's why we are discussing. That's why the whole issue of manual scavenging is still existing. And if you go by the details of the government, which they have placed in the parliament, and which they have been dealing with for so long, they have claimed that they have rehabilitated around 66,000 manual scavengers in the country. And as usual, many states have claimed that there is no manual scavenging, and this is an endless process, which the best person to speak about is Bezwada Wilson, because he and the whole organization, Safai Karamchari Andolan, has taken this fight to this end that finally there is an act in 2013, which is definitely a different kind of an act. And there is a Supreme Court judgment which came in 2014 after a battle of 11 years in the Supreme Court. And the whole case was heard at a different dimensions. Just to bring from that, I just little disagree with the Kanthi when he said that there is less difference, there is no difference between BJP and Congress when he was talking about the new act, about the 2013 act, I think, or the new amendment, I don't know. Because I find that there is definitely a difference of the grades, what we find. Different grades of Manuwad, the way it exists, the different way of casteism, the way it moves with the whole issue of saffronization and communalization of the politics, and it has its impact with the casteist mindset. And I want to open with it that the worst form of Manuwadi politics is reflected in Swachh Bharat. And it has hampered the whole movement of liberation of manual scavenging in this country. If we want to talk about it in this perspective, only then we can move and we can think about the pain, what Narayanamma of Anantapur, what Sarojdi of Haryana, what Meena of Delhi, all these who have been a forefront fighter against this casteist patriarchal practice of manual scavenging. They have been fighting along with the organization, along with the structure, and they have been putting forth that there is a caste exists to it. And the Swachh Bharat, the whole campaign around the Swachh Bharat, which was built by the Narendra Modi, it just wanted to demolish the existence of caste with the sanitation, that there is any link. So first, I think when we talk about manual scavenging, the first thing we have to be very clear that manual scavenging exists in this country because there is a political conspiracy to maintain the caste structure, to maintain the patriarchal caste structure. That's why manual scavenging is still existing. The political masters are the only responsible for this practice, and the whole bureaucracy. Then you can go and deal in detail at the different layers, because definitely it operates at the different levels and different layers in our society. That how the political master decides, then how the executive, how the legislative, how the judiciary, and then finally at the ground, how the woman manual scavenger is putting her fight to end this manual scavenging practice. So I think there is a political perspective, and in that we have to always remember that how Baba Saheb Bhimrao Ambedkar was very clear about it, that who are responsible to maintain the caste structure, who don't want to dismantle the caste structure. And if you talk, these women who have been fighting to either destroy, burn their basket, destruction of the manual, all these toilets, dry toilets, they have been basically dismantling the caste structure at their own different levels. So one point which I want to make here is this, that we have to be very clear about it. And there's a huge link of patriarchy, huge link of the patriarchy when we talk about the manual scavenging, and especially in the manual scavenging, when we talk about the dry toilets. That those who are cleaning the dry toilets, still it's existing in India. Still the fight is going on to identify, demolish, forcing the government to conduct the survey all this is going on for a long period. And to some extent, I must say that it was this organized effort from the community itself, from the community, from these women who came out in the forefront. And they just placed this thing that they don't want them to clean, their next generation to clean. It is their decision to dismantle this caste structure, which is in the worst form existing in the manual scavenging dry toilets. I just want to share a few of my experiences when the case was going on in the Supreme Court. There was a contempt hearing in the Supreme Court, and it was against, as far as I remember, Wilson is here, he can correct me if I'm wrong, against, I think, Haridwar or something, it was there, against the GM of Haridwar, it was going on. And to give their affidavits, 5 or 6 manual scavenging women came to the Supreme Court, and it was such an experience in my life to see them, how they were responding. All the male from the community, they were so much afraid. They have not turned out to in Delhi. They came with the Safai Karamchari Andolan team, and they were fearing. There was a huge fear because at that time the judge said that anyone who is proved to be on a wrong side, who lied to the Supreme Court, they will go to the jail. And 4 women were there, 4 or 5 women were there in the Supreme Court at that time while the hearing. And they stood in the highest court of the land and openly said that, yes, I'm a manual scavenger. I am cleaning this toilet. They gave their affidavit. And definitely the administration, the DM was very panicked. He was sweating like anything. So that woman asked me that now, because we are on the right side, we told the truth to the country. So whether this fellow will go to jail, what will happen? And in 2-3 minutes, the hearing was all over. And it came out in this way that because the officer is very young, at a very young age he is, though he lied and he has given a false affidavit, but we don't want to punish him. So those women were asking the question that what happened? Kya hua? Hum itni dur aaye, but what happened? Where's the justice? So this is what happened with our judiciary, with our legal structure, with our political structure. But you find this courage. I can never forget that how those women who were facing their worst thing, anything could have happened against them. They were manual scavengers. They came openly to Delhi to just fight the highest authority of their land. And they just openly said that we stand by our affidavit. So this is a very different kind of stories of empowerment, story of fight. And definitely, whenever we talk about manual scavengers, or especially the women, being a media person, always what I have felt that generally we try to portray in such a miserable condition, that they are in a very miserable condition. They don't have anything else to share. They don't have any other life. We don't talk about anything, any different aspect about their life. We don't talk about their anger. We just want to have a very miserable, and if you see the photo exhibitions also, the photo exhibitions also brings out a pity picture of them. They are fighting, they are coming out, they are trying to rebuild their life. And there's a huge stories about the rehabilitation thing, which is the biggest scam in this country. So all these things we need to understand that how this aspect, the fight, and how they were able to come out with this kind of a fighting spirit, from where they got this courage to sustain, to leave the manual scavenging, live there, opt for another job. I have interviewed many of them who are saying that it's very difficult because the caste exists, the patriarchy exists, no other work. But still we have hundreds of them who are trying to run either e-rickshaw like Meena or Sarojdi, or many. I should not name few of them. There are many, but definitely Narayan Amma is an icon. So basically what I want to state here, that manual scavenging exists in this country, and the women are forced in a maximum number, if you talk about the cleaning of the dry toilet, because the only reason that the political masters want caste to exist. There is a caste. And if you see the amendment which Modi government is pushing, about which there is no discussion, no debate in a public forum, no stakeholder has been taken in consideration. And there is a whole focus only on the mechanization, only focus on a very strong act, very strong punishment, but there is no accountability. There is no accountability on the Modi government till now, from 2014 till now, what they have done on the grounds of implementing the 2013 Act, on how they have spent lakhs and lakhs of our money on Swachh Bharat, on building the toilet, not on building the lives of the manual scavengers and the scavengers. So this whole issue, there is a very deliberate attempt to dilute the issue, dilute the anger, and to think scavenging beyond caste, or it is not linked with sanitation, is not linked with the caste. But we know that in India, sanitation is 100% linked with the caste, and there are different ways to come out from that. So there is a political conspiracy due to which manual scavenging is still existing. When we are talking, still people are dying in the sewer lines. Still there are dry toilets. Those who are being maximum are cleaned by women. So same thing is existing at the same time. You find that there is a claim of the Swachh Bharat. We have the Swachh Bharat, Swachh villages. We have Swachh cities. We have enormous amount of money which has been spent on that, and still we have women who are still fighting for the rehabilitation. And if you go, I just want to close here, that how the caste exists, how the patriarchy exists. When the women generally, when they go for rehabilitation, they want a rehabilitation. You see what kind of rehabilitation is offered by the government. It is pig rearing, it is goat rearing, or it's a menial, worst kind of, again, the caste thing, which is going to be linked with the rehabilitation. The rehabilitation, there is no vision behind it to dealing the whole issue of caste and patriarchy, the atrocity which is happening. So I think right now, because the government is trying to bring out with one declaration that India is manual scavenging free, that tag Modi wants at any cost that he has done to the country. So at least we who are working or associated with this issue, we have to bring the basic core, that how the women are going to be rehabilitated, how the whole concept or the big business which is entering in the terms for the technology, how it is going to operate, how the whole issue of cleaning is dealing with the caste. And especially at this juncture, we have to ask that how much money is the government is going to allocate. If you go through the budget from 2014 till now, the budget allocation for the rehabilitation has reduced tremendously. So these are the basic issues, that how we are going to build up the momentum and bring the whole issue of dignity and fight against caste and patriarchy into the focus. And we have to be very clear that if the mindset is Manuwadi, if the mindset is casteist, there can never be liberation of manual scavenger, be it woman or man. There is a politics behind it. Without talking about the politics, we cannot talk, we should not talk, because annihilation of caste, the dream, is a political dream. It talks about breaking the different level of patriarchy and the caste. So we have to think in that context. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bhasha ji. It was an excellent insight from the context of liberation, seeking manual scavenger, and the challenges liberation-seeking manual scavenger faces, and both in terms of society and the state and the Manuvadi ideology. So you unpacked it very well for us. Maybe I'll move on to Pragya now. So Pragya recently has written an excellent piece analyzing the new amendment. It's been all over there, and now I will call upon Pragya.
जी नमस्कार। सबसे पहले मैं कहना चाहूँगी कि थोड़ा बाइलिंगुअल ही रहूँगी, क्योंकि बहुत सारे साथी हैं जो कि हिंदी में भी इसको देख रहे हैं और पसंद कर रहे हैं। I think it's been a huge opportunity for me to even be speaking today in front of the big people, in a way, not big actually, but my mentors. विल्सन सर के सामने बात करना मेरे लिए बहुत बड़ी बात है, भाषा दीदी लोगों के सामने बात करना मेरे लिए बहुत बड़ी बात है। So for me to be speaking on manual scavenging today, I think I don't know if I'll do justice with it, but आपने कहा कि आपने वो मुझे बहुत खुशी हुई कि इसको कोई समझ रहा है और पढ़ भी रहे हैं। तो सबसे पहले बात करेंगे रिहैबिलिटेशन की, जो मुझे लगता है कि बहुत ही एक इम्पॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट रहा है। And with the rehabilitation being a very important aspect, because मेरा जो काम रहा है ज़्यादातर rehabilitation से related ही रहा है। So to tell you a brief background, what happened in 2013 was that I actually got an opportunity to speak to a sanitation worker, and within that I actually realized the intersection of rehabilitation and sanitation work. And through that and my Natevas journey, the cultural rehabilitation aspect, majorly through theatre, my work in sanitation area began. And lastly, to be able to work on manual scavenging within actually Safai Karamchari Andolan has been something that was a huge aspect for me to understand. So my understanding in itself has widened by my work in Safai Karamchari Andolan. तो जब हम बात करते हैं मैनुअल स्कैवेंजिंग की और उससे जुड़े रिहैबिलिटेशन की बात कर रहे हैं, तो उसमें एक बहुत बड़ा एक लूपहोल है जो हम जिसके ऊपर नहीं बात कर पाते, क्योंकि सबसे पहले जैसे भाषा दीदी ने कहा कि देयर इज अ ह्यूज गैप बिटवीन द वे the infrastructure of the sanitation projects are there. The Swachh Bharat Abhiyan is actually in direct contradiction with the rights of the sanitation workers in India. Because, in one way, you are talking about building of toilets, but in another way, in the rural settlements where there is an absolute lack of any kind of water supply, there is an absolute lack of any kind of maintenance. The problem of tying up of the both front become an absolute conflict in such way. So that conflict rises in a particular manner that we
have lost Pragya, unfortunately. We will wait whether she'll reconnect. Otherwise, we will move on to the next speaker, perhaps.
Hello.
Yeah.
So now, at one hand, we have all these sanitation policies which are talking holistically about the infrastructure. On the other hand, we are not able to understand that because of lack of any kind of proper water supply and any kind of maintenance, how is it that a sanitation worker is going to work in a particular sanitation infrastructure? At one hand, we are talking about how major cities have become ODF now, and we are celebrating and boasting it and highlighting the major aspects of that. But at the other end, we have not been able to talk about the rights of the sanitation workers. To begin with, any kind of right of sanitation workers, there is a lack of any kind of definition of who the sanitation workers are and its integration with manual scavengers. So for anybody who's been working on sanitation also understands that it took us so many years. In 1993, we had a very limited definition of manual scavenging. In 2013, the definition of manual scavengers also increased, where we brought in to highlight the railway platform workers, sanitation workers, into the categorization of manual scavengers. But how is it that we have not been able to channelize the different categories of sanitation workers in the manual scavengers format? With that, what we are doing is that we are not taking into account the person who's probably working at the biggest sanitation sites. For example, what about the intersection of the sanitation waste workers who probably do not expose themselves to the byproduct of the human excreta, but they are in direct exposure of the biochemical hazards and other kind of hazards, which are actually in a way manual scavenged through.
Yeah, we will wait for some more time. Perhaps maybe we again lost Pragya. So we'll wait for 1 minute. Then otherwise we'll move on to the next speaker and we'll come back to the Pragya. We will come back to Pragya again. Unfortunately, we have lost, and we are all familiar with the technical glitches that we are all suffering. Now I call upon Dr. Raees Muhammed, so who extensively researched on manual scavenging as part of his PhD thesis, known as Ravichandran earlier. So also co-founder of Dalit Camera and well-known brother and comrade. Now floor is yours, Raees.
Hi, good evening, and thank you, one and all. And also thanks for the quest for organizing this program and also giving a chance for the camera to elaborate a bit. And thanks for Ramon, Bezwada and Bhasha and others also being part of this program. So I would just take a few minutes to say, see, there is a how I see this entire new bill or the entire law itself. See, actually, I don't read these laws. I'm not interested in these amendments and even the 2013 law on the prohibition of manual scavenging. It's not that I'm not interested, that that others should not be interested. Because my area of, I think that Anna and there are many people who are working on that area, but I feel there is a big lacuna which is yet to be filled or even yet to be discussed. And I think that is something very crucial. For an example, even in the bill, which nobody discusses, very few people, or I don't see anyone discussing it at all, because I find the approach of the government is in response to the civil society's comment. Like, for example, the government says, for example, I was going through the law since for this program, I was reading through the amendments and also the earlier law, earlier 2000 amendment, the bill 2013. See, there is a problem with this bill itself. The bill's definition of manual scavenging that everyone is discussing even now. They are saying that the manual scavenger, the definition of manual scavenger has to be changed because it is very literal. That is not the case on the ground. That is that. But I'm talking about the insanitary latrine also. See, for example, the government has one way or the other way, and even the social movements also have the one way or the other way. So, for example, they say that ban this job, or the government would say that okay, manual scavenging is banned, or ban all the insanitary latrines. So, what is the government's definition of sanitary latrines? The government's definition in the bill of sanitary latrine is nothing but the meaning which is not insanitary is sanitary latrine. For example, if I have to read that, it says that sanitary latrine means a latrine which is not an insanitary latrine. See, that itself is a problem, because insanitary and sanitary latrine is not, it's a very complex issue. For an example, open defecation, that may be a sanitary way, but humiliation and self-respect, everything is attached to that. And then the toilet, for example, in my area, there is a toilet which the government built, and there is no electricity, there is no water. But there's a stepping tank is there. You can take the water and go. But many people don't use that, and it built very far. So insanitary and sanitary also has to be defined in a proper. I mean, sanitary itself has to be defined, because if now I have to go and ask the government or the local authorities to give water to the tank, to the toilets, even some nearby, because we have to carry water to the toilet for around 500 meters. And late night, just imagine late night women and men going, especially women or child needs to use the toilet, and how far they will be going. So sanitary letting, the definition has to be changed. See, the other very important aspect I find is when we discuss the labor is completely missing everywhere in the amendment or in the last bill or in the present discussion. In the present, I mean, the ongoing discussion about people asking to say, to raise the issue with the parliament members, member of the parliament, to discuss the present bill amendment they want to bring. Even there, the labor is missing. What is this labor? See, Swachh Bharat, when we say the Congress and the BJP, I have to say that let us take what is there on the face value. The face value, it is the Swachh Bharat, which is an approach of a Gandhian approach. Gandhian's approach is an approach of demeaning labor itself. What did Gandhi do? Gandhi, what he did is, he said scavenging is equal to other jobs. He said, let it be. But he started doing the job. So what it meant is that he was encouraging the scavengers to do the job. He never said the Brahmins should do scavenging. He never said that. He said caste, he upheld the caste system. Let it be in a broader way. He upheld the caste professions. So in that profession, I don't understand why Gandhi himself is caste profession when he's not scavenging, why he did scavenging. So that is very contradictory. And then if we are going against the manual scavenging, I've been repeatedly saying this, if we are banning and if we condemn the manual scavenging practice, then we have to condemn Gandhi's approach to scavenging. During freedom struggle itself, the 19th century, 16th century, the world introduced the toilets. Europeans introduced the water closet. But when did India receive this? Why in the freedom struggle we did not receive the water closet? It is not that you can say village or city. Why even the colonial government, when they built toilets, it is not to say that colonial reproduced caste, which Kanthi was saying. No, colonialism never reproduced something, but colonialism appropriated the Brahmin culture. What is the Brahmin culture? The Brahmin Hindu temple culture. The Hindu temple culture is to keep the toilets away from it. So we speak about caste. When we say about scavenging is related to caste, what caste it is? Because there is a discussion that caste is there in Christian, caste is there in Hinduism, caste is there in Islam, caste is there in everywhere. So when we say caste, when we discuss scavenging, it is Hindu caste system. Why have we also secularized the category of scavenging? So in other ways, I want to say, the temple is a central of our understanding of scavenging. The scavenging is not an issue of the government. The government has brought an amendment bill exclusively mechanizing, because I have seen Dalit movement asking to mechanize the toilets, mechanize the cleaning. Everything is there, but what is the labor? Where is the labor? Manual scavenging, the government, it's a very sad scenario that it is shameful also. The government, the Indian government and the respective state governments, until the ban of manual scavenging, recruited scavengers to clean the shit. And the local government never built water closets. Why? They have to apologize. And then they got a bill and saying that we will define what is scavenger and we will take a census of scavenger. The government should say that even now. My father, for example, he was, in those days, all the sanitary workers working with the government were called as scavengers. So what is now during the COVID, it's very interesting in COVID, there are many. I've found Nehru Yuva Kendra in my area going and doing some contractual labors like doing some street theaters and also going with the bleaching powders and other powders and going across the cities, spreading it. Very, very sadly, why can't they go to why can't they volunteer to COVID patients ward? Because what makes, for example, a scavenger goes to a COVID ward. He's asked in Tamil Nadu, it's happening now. The scavenger of the local municipality has been asked to go to the COVID ward. He's saying, I can't go because I am already heart patient and I have diabetic. I can't go. And I'm also a drunkard. So I can't go. I don't want to go. But the government forces him to go. The government wrote an order. The respective commissioner wrote an official office order asking him to go. So what is the fitness certificate for that work? So what is this NGOs? Every time when there is a flood, when there is a disastrous, they will be dispersing food items and napkins. Now they have also revolutionized bringing these napkins and other materials. But why can't these people come volunteer to scavenge, to remove the shit, to remove the dead bodies? Why? Because that is caste. Okay, where is this caste? When we speak about the caste is not some abstract. It is with us, as Kanthi was saying about the Mala Madhya conflict, or in Tamil Nadu, the Paraya Chakliya conflict. The caste is there with us. Even with the scavengers, there is caste. So it is a complex issue. It is not about the banning or not banning, or removing or not removing. It is a very complex issue. For example, my father is no more a scavenger. He doesn't scavenge. But where is the self-respect? So you can give me a job. You can ask me to wear the gloves and the material but that is the securing my body. But how about my self-respect? The caste is about self-respect, right? It is not about material. I can wear a coat, shoot and go, but it doesn't change. That is what Baba Sahib Ambedkar said, that it is not about his education. Baba Sahib studied so much. And why did he embrace Buddhism? He said that his caste never goes. So it is not about the gloves. Gloves will come automatically when the caste is eradicated, because they consider these guys, these men and women of this community or this caste are meant to do this. And also we are taught, scavengers are taught that. Because why scavengers still, see, that is what I say. In India, what we require is not expecting from the state a solution. We need a civil rights movement. We never had a civil rights movement like we had in the US or any other country. We had movement, which individual movements, independent movements. So I think, for example, the left movement, what they do is they look into the labor. At last, I would like to point out this also. See, in Tamil Nadu, there are 3-4 political parties, major political parties. All of them have labor union, but none of them have labor union for sanitation workers. No one has. Congress doesn't have. I don't think they have a labor union. In AIDMK or DMK, both of them have labor unions for lorry drivers. They have every work has a labor union except sanitation workers. Why? And another thing, I have been repeatedly saying, the workers' rules, they are considered as a government staff. But what is the rule of their work? That is not there in this. So what is happening with this amendment and the bill and the discussion at every level is, we talk about the work. The Swachh Bharat is about how, it is about the garbage. It's about the garbage, on the garbage, everything's about the garbage. Nothing about the labor. Because labor is there. Labor self-respect, nobody discusses this. Labor's labor, what is the security? Job security, medical security, health security. When are we going to discuss this? And when are these amendments are going to discuss about that? Because civil society hasn't discussed. Civil society has been asking about the mechanizing the system. I want to say at least only I think in India at least there is some sanity in this manual scavenging debates is only because of Bezwada. No? Otherwise, I don't think there would have been any sanitation. At least because I'm discussing this now, 1990s onwards, he has been discussing the same. So at last, if you have to discuss it, everybody shits in this country. Everybody should know this, and everybody is part of the culture. What is the culture? Considering shit as a inhuman object. Shit has to be away from your house. Unholy object. It is your own shit, but you consider it as an unholy shit after you shit it. You need somebody else who will come and clean your shit. That is sad in this country. That is sad. Why? It comes from the Hindu religious understanding of caste and unholy and holiness. What is holiness and unholiness? So holiness, certain spaces is considered as holiness. Certain spaces are not considered as unholiness. That is the temple as a architecture, which is considered as a holy place. In that holy place, you are taught not to have shit there. You should have taught not to have toilets there. So you keep away toilets, and you consider home as a temple. You keep away the toilets. You consider the schools and colleges as a temple space of learning. You keep the toilets away. There is no point in you saying that we build temples we build schools instead of temples. No, we need both. You see, that is what we need. It is not the toilet and the temple. We need both. We need toilets. Along with that toilets, we need temples. You cannot remove the toilet and keep. Where will the crowd go? I've been to Ayyappa temple 6 years. And 6 years there was no toilets. Because it was considered as an unholy. In Pampa River, we used to go and bath, and there won't be a toilet with the crowd. So, in last, I would like to say, the root of this problem has to be revisited. Scavenging, caste, and Hindu caste system. It roots to the architectures. It reproduces. We reproduce. And sociology, India sociology studies, academics, they don't encourage the real mind. I don't think Bezwada Wilson, when I invited him to Indian Institute of Advanced Study. I was discussing about because he has been the pioneer. He has been the only one person pioneer in this issue. But how many of our institutions recognizes that? How many of them? They call him just to say that, okay, we also support manual scavenging. How many of them strongly stand by his ideology or his work? Colombia or anywhere. So it's all politics. It's all politics. You cannot run a social revolution with politics. And at this moment, I find what we have in India is all about either doing this or that. There is nothing, a concrete way of finding a solution to the problem. So in that case, I would say that is why I find one has to revisit Ambedkar's writings or Ambedkar's life or Ambedkar's experience and Ambedkar's approach to religion itself. It's very important if you want to address manual scavenging. So in context to the amendments, in context to the bill, what we have to look is the bill discusses, or the entire civil society discusses about the labor, how to protect the labor, but not about the labor. Labor's body, like example, always they bring the gloves. What is this gloves? And even for the gloves, why can't they ask a committee to be constituted by their Safai Karamcharis itself and ask them what is the good? They have given some gloves. It is stinking actually. It's stinking gloves. It's a very different workload what we have here. And so you also, civil society also wants to impose their idea on the manual scavengers. What is good for them? So when we say dehumanizing job, it is dehumanizing for whom? That is the question we have to ask. Because the community hasn't considered dehumanizing it yet. Because it is unaware of it. There is no social mobilizing happening at the same time. Once it happened for the dry latins, demolishing it, but where is the larger level of civil rights or self-respect movement? The labor, India has a great labor movement, but labor movement doesn't discuss caste. And unless they discuss caste, I don't think manual scavenging can be removed, because manual scavenging is terribly linked with the caste. So with that, with that, I would like to conclude my remarks stating that the central for manual scavenging is the understanding of our own understanding of what is pure, what is impure. The pure in a body, how a body, what is shit we consider. So we are a community which are taught that our own leg is an untouchable. That is why our own friend would become an untouchable. Our own friend, our own food, our own hair would become untouchable. Our own shit would become an untouchable. So that is a problem. We need to respect ourselves. So that is why they say that we have to consider ourselves and respect our own body. So unless and until that is there, that idea of changing, that is caste, which unless and until that is changed, I think there is a long way ahead us. That is why I don't discuss about these bills. There is a long way ahead for us because I haven't find even a way there. I find there is a deadlock either in the Dalit movement or in this entire movement. So we have to change it. We have to break it. So I hope it would be, there would be some kind of an discussion or some kind of breaking that wall soon or later. But that has to be broken. That has to be broken. So from that, I conclude my remarks.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Raees. It was an intense discussion, also confluence of different questions that you have raised pertinently, the question of labor, self-respect and caste, and how you understand, so how do you differentiate about holy and unholy. And it's also the importance of the local definitions of sanitation when you are looking after the sanitation from the more global and the national perspective. So I'm also asked to do the job of moderator. So maybe I have two questions I can raise quickly. So if Wilson sir is ready, just quick question to the Wilson sir. Sir?
Sir, I'm just leaving, sir.
That's a quick question, sir. Before you leave, before you leave, a comment on the manifesto. I mean, the way forward to the manual scavenging. So how you are envisaging and how everyone in the country can be part of this project. So can you shed light on that? And then on that note, we will move on to Raees and then we'll conclude the session.
Sir, we have to do in all the sectors. It is not just one place or one thing. Like we can't say that law is not required now, but law also required, but it is not functioning because, as Raees said very clearly, because of the casteist mindset, nothing else. And there is a patriarchy, so there is a wages differences, all those things are also there. So there must be some good labor union for the sanitation workers. See, but when we are talking about the manual scavenging, we should not link all together, because if you link all together, what are we going to demand? That is a big question. So you say that manual scavenging eradication. So do you think that the sanitation work is also eradication? So the community is ready where they are now. As civil rights movement, as Raees mentioned very clearly, the community is now coming with the conscious, and they are also raising. So the dry latrines where the women go and clean and take the human excreta on the head, that is there in the many parts of the country, at least 69 districts in the country, even today. So the government of India is also taking in a big step on that, to just say that there is nothing like. All chief secretaries are in the wedge after declaring that there is no manual scavenging. They have written, they have given day before yesterday to the central government. So how do we actually say that what they are saying is the lie? And so openly, bluntly, how the chief secretary can have a dare to come and say that there is nothing in Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, Rajasthan, Jammu, Kashmir and all. So there is. So the movement and all we have to say very clearly in the open things as a chief secretary. So those things we have to question and we have to make it, expose them. Saying lies also part of the caste system. They think that scavenger is working is not a big job deal. So वो कहीं एक जगह दो जगह काम करे तो क्या होते हैं, उनका मन पे ये है. They can't say. as he rightly said, that Gandhian approach and all approaches as I have made the country to this level, we have to take a very clear step that no human being should clean other shit. And there should not be any discussion on that. And whatever it is, whatever going to happen, and after the Swachh Bharat completion, and after 2 years, still if there is a dry latrines, it is a shame. After 2 lakh crores, we have just thrown on the drain. So these are the questions we have to take it forward, and we have to question the government always and make them accountable. And that is their responsibility to see that the citizens are living with dignity, self-respect. If that is not happening, then we will question definitely. And civil society also we will question. And we will also question everybody until the last women scavenger get the liberation.
Thank you for that provocative discussion, Wilson sir, as always. We'll take a couple of points from you tonight, and hope we'll have more and more discussions. So I have a quick question to Raees, Muhammed, and in fact, to detail, taking an important point from what he have actually mentioned from his talk. So, Raees, you see, so the definitions of sanitation work is largely rested in terms of the local way. For example, if you see in villages, so the caste society explicitly functions when there is a need for doing some sanitation work or waste work or filthy work. So they know whom to bring. And the same thing is manifested and translated in the cities, because the contractor now more like a private person, so brings people who he or she knows that, okay, so they will do this work into the city. So for example, so in the national media or national discourse, the stressing of this subject is something okay in terms of covering of the particular issue of occasionally people writing and explaining. But in vernacular media, so from your own experience and understanding, so can you reflect some relevant points? So how important is vernacular media or the national media to disengage sanitation workers, or in fact to discuss this issue more comprehensively? So after this we will conclude, and I will hand over to Jayna Kothari.
Actually, few months before, this is an idea of architecture. This architecture idea I've been just working on, started working last 2 years, and it is evolving. So now we have started a self-respect trade union. It's called, we wanted to start a all India sanitation worker self-respect trade union. And we were discussing with Bezwada also, and they are starting it. So we have initiated in Nilgiri district. So it was an amazing, I won't say amazing, it was it was an experience, some incidents which struck me a lot, because before the sanitation workers engagement, the ground level engagement, day-to-day activity, I always argued that sanitation work in India is considered as a social service. It's a social service. And during this COVID, I was shocked. And Dalit movement, that is so sad. Dalit movement, I called them and asked. One incident happened in Gudalur Town Municipal Corporation. I received a complaint that 4 staffs have been asked to go and work with the COVID ward as a sanitation workers. So these staff have rejected. They said, no, we don't want to go there because we are scared for our life. We can't go. One is there is a practical reason for that, because if they die, I don't think they would be shown in even the TV or newspapers. I don't think their history would be erased, and medical record, medical insurance policies, nothing would be there. So there is a practical reason what they say. There is no confidence in them. So like army, when people say there is a confidence, there is something to back you up. Who the family here, nobody backs. And after the new pension policy, labor laws and all, there are so many issues. So anyway, so these staffs have said that no, we don't want to go. So the commissioner wrote a letter, official letter with a green head signature, asking them to go. This is an order. So they sent me this letter. So I called some few Dalit organizations and said, see, there is an issue with this. Is there a rule which can say that the commissioner has to force them to go for a COVID sanitation work? No, they can go to a COVID work. They have to. There's sanitation. But what is the guideline? For example, COVID patients. If I myself, my body is weak. This guy has gone for an open heart surgery, and then he's been asked to go, and he's a diabetic, so a heart patient. So he said that no, I can't go because my health is not in a fit condition. So they said no, you have to go. So that is where, and this guy said no, they can't say, they have to go. Dalit movement is saying. That is where shocked me. And Dalit movement once said, just a month before I started this our organization, they said, if a Dalit, if any person dies in a manhole, let him die. He deserves it. And that is another shock I had. And there was another Dalit movement which said that we should reject all these manual scavenging people who do sanitation work. That is another shock. And then there is another shock which happened is, see the lorry, there is no, all of you know that for sanitation workers, there is no any bus or a vehicle to transfer them to different work zones. Because you see, there is a radius of some 7-8 kilometers, 7 or 5 kilometers in hilly area. I live in a hilly area. Here, the radius of that area is very far, 7-8 kilometers. But you have to walk since it is COVID and lockdown. There are no frequent buses, so you have to walk. So what they did is they have been carrying them in a garbage vehicle. You know, the garbage truck, and behind the truck they stand and they go. So I didn't complain because I thought practically, even I didn't get any idea. I thought it's okay. They don't have vehicle. They are traveling. Okay, fine. But the local authorities always suspect me that any photo if I take, they think that I'm complaining, I'm doing some issues. So I did take a photo. I just put a Facebook message saying that, see, these people are traveling, because many civil societies are awake when they see in the flood affected zones, when Dalits are carried, they started writing newspapers, articles, special articles saying that, oh, these people are carried garbage. I was saying every day it happens. It is normal. So I found that's a practical reason. There is no vehicle. How will they go? Even the EO, executive officer, doesn't have a vehicle, or even the sanitary inspector does not have a vehicle. Panchayat board doesn't have a vehicle apart from garbage vehicles. So I didn't take it seriously. Then these guys all were being taken in a tipper lorry. The tipper lorry means where they keep a garbage 2 boxes of garbage and they take it. So since there was no buses, they removed the garbage vehicle without protection. They were carrying these scavengers, standing there as like the slaves. I'm not saying slaves. Equating slave itself is doing injustice for the anti-slavery movement, because that is different and this is different. I don't want to compare, but I'm just giving for you to imagine. So they were holding, men and women were holding. Then I got very angry. Then I went to the newspapers. They all published, and everything they published. And it is then I got an idea. I found, see, the sanitation inspector hires a vehicle. The executive officer hires a vehicle. And these staffs have to walk. Okay, they are going with a garbage vehicle. Fine. My question raised is, why can't the supervisor also travel on the same vehicle? He doesn't travel. He says no, because the same supervisor told us when this photo circulated, he said, oh, you people need AC vehicles. We can't provide AC vehicles for your kind of work. And then the executive officer says, I can't allow them to sit next to me, opposite to me. They have to stand. So he said, because of the grade. And then none of them are allowed into the office to take attendance. They said, no, we can't take attendances. Every sanitation worker has a roll call. This is an old method they follow. Old method. The one reform hasn't entered is the sanitation workers' labor. It has never ever, no reform has even, I don't think even civil society imagined there has to be a reform, because I don't think even for them they are subject. So even for them, I found that it is not service. So they just say, you go, you die, you die. There is nothing else. So it is not a service also. So I found, as Kanthi was trying to equate from the village and this, I find the body of a scavenger is not a body for them. There is no body. He's just an object. He or she is an object. And yeah, as Bezwada Anna has been repeatedly saying, along with Bhasha Singh also, the majority of the sanitation at this generation, because manual scavenging is mostly done, dry litters were done by women due to the labor and due to the caste and due to the salary also. And then the manhole deaths, all of men. But now the generation COVID and various aspects, it is all women. Majority of women are employed. But the sanitary inspector would be a man, executive officer would be a man, supervisor would be a man. The problem is, I'm not bringing some high level ideological gender questions here, but simple thing. Even for them, if they have to go to bathroom, there is a serious issues in this. And that kind of a question also doesn't come with these bills. It is not about, see, we live in a patriarchal society, we live with it, and they move around, they navigate with that. But when the entire workforce is women, and you ask them to walk, because you see, men bring their car and they drive. It's a patriarchal society where men are not encouraged to drive vehicles. So women walk 5 kilometers, 7 kilometers to the work, and men come by car and they go by the car. So the problem here is, unless and until we consider them as humans, only then you will stop this discussion of you will stop the discussion of gloves and all safety material. What are you safety? What safety? This is what I was saying, that when Black Lives Matter, when Dalits were writing Dalits Lives Matter, what life you want? What life you want to protect? A life without self-respect, a life without dignity. You want to protect that slavery. You want to protect that dehumanized body. I think that is a problem. The way we see this is a problem. The way the entire issue on this subject has to be thrown into a garbage, I have to say that. Because we need to reform it. We need to revisit this entire debate. And academics did the biggest damage. IITs, IIMs, JNU, all institutions, all literature, writers, I think they did the biggest damage when approaching to the scavenging. Because they always said, it is a state subject. Like state has to bring a law. No, state will never give you freedom. State is meant to have a status quo. That is what Ambedkar said, even when the Constitution cannot revolutionize a society. That's what, I'll give you one example and I'll complete. In my childhood, when I was doing my college, I was traveling. So I found a traffic inspector. He was standing in between and he was dancing and asking the vehicle to go. And it was very good, very nice to watch. And then I saw him when the signal was red, but there was no vehicle. The signal was red, yeah. When the signal was red, there was no vehicle around. He asked to go. At that time, he said, it's something striking. He said, these signals are maintain the status quo, that there shouldn't be traffic jam. It doesn't mean that you have to wait there. So if there is no vehicle, if there is no traffic jam, you can just move on. And that is what the police does it. That is what the Constitution doesn't do. That is why the Constitution cannot be implemented. Because the Constitution cannot be revolutionary. Because who implements it? Which government wants to be overthrown? No government wants to be overthrown. No MLA wants to give up his or her posts. Because power cannot bring you a revolution. You have to overthrow the power. The power overthrow, I mean to say about the idea of that power, that I need to sit on the chair because it is me who controls. No, it is a society distributing it. I think that is not missing. That is completely missing. And then unless and until everyone takes it as a responsibility of us in our house, we teach our children, we teach our architecture, we teach our architect designers that this is not the way we have to see the toilet in our house. This is not the way we see the kitchen in the house. This is not we design our slippers where it should be. This is not we imagine our barbers where they should keep. So I think, and you have to see, Indian architecture has a religious color to it. Exclusively Indian architecture it is not a secular architecture. Any architecture in India is not secular. It is very Hindu religious architecture. You have to revolutionize that. So include toilets and include the labor in your discussions. So I think, and one last point is, see, one cannot take a medical insurance for a scavenger. Most of the scavengers were forced to drink alcohol. They were forced to drink alcohol. They became alcoholic because of the job. It is not due to the job's stink. No, because of the society. Because the society enforced. There are some hereditary law where scavengers, even in Himachal, they follow it now, some places at least. They give alcohol for scavengers and Dalits as a monetary material. So my father used to say, when he goes, they used to say, drink, you can't work. See, that is the imagination of the society. They say, no humans can work on this, so you drink alcohol.
Many movie scenes are there which says that no human conscious mind can work on this work. So therefore, the worker's body has to be humanized. I think that is a problem. Leave it to the human. My generation staffs, all of them do not drink at all. Most of them have stopped drinking, and they do scavenging. They go and they do all nasty. They don't drink. So the imagination of the civil society has to change. Unless and until that, it is multiple level. You cannot just expect the states to intervene and give you freedom. Freedom cannot be given; it has to be bought. And with that, I would say, Dalits, the scavenging, like the caste system has bodies. So in caste system, there is some has bodies, some don't have bodies. Everybody has a body. We have to recognize that, and everybody needs self-respect, and even the labor needs a self-respect. So at last, I would say, the scavenging sanitation work is a work across the globe. You cannot escape from it. But when are these Dalit going to engage with that? Because which show me one country where there is no sanitation workers, but I can show you all countries where there is no caste. But why Dalit movement is even forgetting to recognize this Dalit movement, a Dalit discourse, it's a very problematic discourse, because the Dalit movement will say you cannot eradicate. Ambedkar said that, right? My education did not remove caste; he converted to Buddhism. Then if I remove my job, many people say that leave your job, your caste will go. If I leave the job, will my caste go? Now we say that President of India is a Dalit. Did his caste go? No, caste never goes like that. Job is different. You have to say the job has a caste. You have to remove the job caste from the job, not the human from the job. So Dalits have to put their minds into work. So anyway, it's a huge debate, and I may not be a coherent, but I'm coherent in one way to say the entire discourse of manual scavenging has to be thrown out and has to be revisited. There has been a lot of contribution has been done, and we have to take the good points, and we have to look into the labor and the caste, and we have to address the caste, remove the caste from the labor, not the labor itself. I think that is a problem. The government cannot just say yes and no. Sanitary means sanitary, insanitary means whatever not sanitary is insanitary. If at least if they say that, that is fine. They say what is insanitary, that's a worst form. Whatever the worst form is not there, all a good form. That cannot be done, because it's a complex issue, and even manual scavenging is a complex issue, and civil society has to be approach this very complex in a complex approach. Cannot say that do this and do that, yes or no. No, that cannot happen. We have to be very frank and very practical. If you need to change the society, if you need to change the community, if you need to give some kind of a hope for the community, then be very practical, be very truthful. Actually, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, on that note, thank you again for the illuminating point. So I think stressing the importance of labor and not reinscribing the caste again into the labor when you are dealing with the question of manual scavenging. I hope we had interesting discussion. I mean, I don't know we ran out of time or not, but unfortunately we have to we have lost Pragya, so due to the technical glitches. And Bhasha ji and Wilson sir have to leave because of the further engagements. Maybe I take this opportunity to pass on to Jayna Kothari for her concluding remarks. And before that, I thank Akash Singh Rathod for introducing me to the quest. So, and I also congratulate and I want to see the quest doing these kind of initiatives more and more. So, thank you. And now the complete floor is
Thank you, Kanthi, and thank you to the Quest for including me in this panel. I heard many of the speakers, and I think they've covered the issue of manual scavenging, caste, and the discrimination faced very, very extensively. So I'm not going to really, go through all of that. What I'll do is I'll give a few concluding remarks. One one observation I want to highlight, which has come out through all the talks. It's very, very obvious and clear that manual scavenging is linked to caste. There's no doubt about it. It's a caste-based form of discrimination. It's a caste-based discriminatory occupation, But what is extremely surprising is that our law, the 2013 law, has no mention of caste. The entire act, the Prohibition of Employment of Manual Scavengers and the Rehabilitation Act, or the previous act, has no mention of caste. So the law gives it a very casteless impression, that it is just a manual scavenging labor issue, and I think that's a problem because the law does not even recognize or want to acknowledge that this is a form of caste-based discrimination. So I think that is a real problem. And this even the new amendment, though I've not read it carefully, I don't think the new amendment has it. So, the reality is caste, but the law does not acknowledge that reality. So that is one issue I want to point out. The second issue is, before we look at the new amendment, I think the biggest challenge is the implementation of the existing 2013 Act. Some of the speakers did highlight parts of it, but I want to just give a very quick overview. There is the only implementation that happens to any extent is giving compensation when someone dies, and that compensation is there. But, that shows that you're only bothered and there's media coverage only when somebody dies. And then the 10 lakh compensation, what the Supreme Court has said, is given. But no other part of the act is implemented. The offenses and conviction is not implemented. There are hardly any convictions. All the issues of identification of persons as manual scavengers is not done. Even when they're identified, they are not being given identity cards, and none of that process is done. That means that rehabilitation is not done. Some of the speakers spoke about the problems in rehabilitation. So if identification is not done, then it will lead to rehabilitation not being done. There are so many provisions of rehabilitation. Loans will be given, houses and sites will be given to manual scavengers, but none of this is done. In fact, even the National Commission for Safai Karamcharis, which is set up, and the state commissions for Safai Karamcharis, which are set up, they themselves don't facilitate loans. Bezwada ji will has shared to what extent they have been approaching the national and state commissions for loans. And they are flush with money, but loans are not given. So in every way, the act is not used. There is a requirement that there'll be a duty on local authorities to use modern technology so that there is no need for manual scavenging. None of that is done. So I feel that there is a huge challenge of the law. Why is the law not being implemented? Why are we not seeking enforcement of the law? I think along with many other issues, we have to, as civil society, seek enforcement of the law. Of course, I'm a lawyer, so my solutions, I do, give legal kind of solutions a little more strongly. I do feel we have to go and seek enforcement of the law. And to that extent, I feel the movement has to look at legal remedies as an important part of their campaign. Of course, the campaign is there, but we have to make legal remedies as part of the campaign. We are doing some work in Karnataka. In Karnataka, the Karnataka High Court, again arising out of a death case, took up the issue of suo motu of implementation of the 2013 Act. In that, we are representing Tamate, which is a group which is working extensively on eradication of manual scavenging. And I think we have to do that extensively at the national level and at different states. We have to force the state to enforce some of these provisions of the Act so that rehabilitation identification is done, and not just enforce it when there are death cases. So I feel that I will end here. I feel, all the speakers have covered extensively the social aspect of the issue of manual scavenging, and I will conclude by these comments. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to conclude this workshop by delivering the vote of thanks on behalf of the Quest and our partners, Center for Law and Policy Research, Dalit Camera, our media partners, SCC Online, and EBC. I would also like to thank each and every panelist for giving their valuable time to talk on this topic, and showing their courage to speak it out loud to our viewers. Uh, so I would like to end this workshop with just a quote from which was being given by Harsh Mandar. He said that one of the modern India's greatest shame is the official failure to eradicate manual scavenging, the most degrading, surviving practice of untouchability in the country. Thank you, all the panelists. Thank you, Ms. Jayna Kothari, and all other panelists, Kanthi Swaroop, Sir, Raees Muhammed, Sir, uh, Mr. Bhasha, Mr. Bezwada Wilson, Sir, Ms. Bhasha Singh, Ms. Pragya, Akhilesh, those we lost the connectivity in between. And I would also like to thank Mr. Nishant Sirohi for his opening remarks. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.